5 years ago, I remember laying on the floor thinking about this huge investment that I just did. It was $100,000 program that I enrolled in, and I couldn't keep up the payments. And I remember just laying on the ground, and tears were just flowing from my face. And as I look back, I remember thinking that in that moment, it felt like this huge weight. I was so committed. I was so excited. I knew the program that I signed up for was the right thing. And the previous year, the most money I ever made was like $12,500 the whole year. And then here I am. I just signed up for this $100,000 program. I put 10,000 down. No, I put 5,000 down out of the 10,000 that I'd saved up because I started getting momentum, and then I had to come up with 15 grand that month to stay in the program. And the previous month, I had made my first like $10,000 ever. And so I was in this place of just barely getting started and the newness, and I just knew that this was my next step. And that month, I remember bringing in about 15K, but I needed 20 to make the rest of the payments of the things that I'd previously done, and I fell short. I had the biggest month of my life, yet I was depressed. I felt like I was just crying. I was blaming, and I was wondering, like, why, God? Why did you let me down? I stayed up for work 12, 14, 15 hours a day, just crushing it out, trying to make my goal, and I fell short. And what I realized in that moment, as I fell short, that I had become a slave to money again. My whole life, I was on this mission to inspire people and not get caught up in the money. And then at that moment, the moment where I made more money than I'd ever had in my entire life in a month, it felt like I had completely failed. And I lost sight of the purpose behind what I was doing. I remember thinking that I had to go attain this goal to please my coach, to keep my word, to like do all these things. And at the end of the day, even though I was making all these sales, every sale I made felt like it was so far away from the goal that I had, so there was no joy in the journey. And every $1,500 that I made felt like pulling teeth. It felt like, man, I can't make this. I'm only at 5,000. I'm only at 10,000. I've got like 10 more to go. And I lost sight of my why. I lost sight of the purpose behind what I was doing. And too often in life, we go through life setting goals, things that we want to achieve, and we lose sight and purpose in the very goal that we set. And I remember in that moment, literally I was on the floor for over an hour just like weeping and crying and trying to figure out my life and what more. And I was so tuned out that I didn't even think about doing a loan or trying to ask for help. I just felt alone. I felt like I had to do it by myself, and I couldn't ask for help. And I had all this shame around talking to the coach that I had bought this program for, and I didn't want to admit that I couldn't do it, that I fell short. Because my whole life I had always felt like I had fallen short, that I couldn't do it. And it just was another piece of evidence to validate, see, I told you, Tyler, you can't do it. You're not good enough. And as I went through that experience, I'm very grateful for it. Number one, it taught me to not be a victim to the goal, to not lose sight out of the most important thing, which is serving people. And with every sale, as I was teaching people, what I needed to be focused on is the fact that another life is changed, another person that I can influence, another family that will be impacted through the teachings that I'm able to share with them. But instead, I was so fixated on the goal of trying to attain that money goal in order to fulfill and prove and show that I was good enough, that I deserved to play big, that I deserved to have it all, that I lost sight. And I caused myself depression, caused myself uncertainty, caused myself these feelings of doubt, of regret, of shame. And I remember not wanting to talk to the person I had purchased this with. because I'd have to admit my failure. And because of what I do, I knew that I needed to confront that, even though it was something I was avoiding. And I was so afraid to get on a conversation with the person because I knew they would enroll me into a different idea. And I had my story and it was so strong that I wasn't good enough, that I knew if I got involved with somebody who was bigger than me, they would convince me, because I knew that I was not in my power. So I did it anyway. And I hopped on the call and I told him I'd fallen short. I couldn't do it. And being the kind of person that he was, which I am super grateful for, instead of shaming or blaming or saying, hey, you didn't make it, he said, cool, we'll just hop into my 35K program instead. And so I downsold. I went into the $35,000 program. I had to keep up a monthly payment of like $3,000 every month. This was a huge thing to me at the time. Remember, the previous year, I haven't even hit six figures at this time yet. So this was a huge chunk of change for me. And I got into the program and I had to work on my doubts and uncertainties because I didn't want to go into the program feeling like it was a letdown or a failure. I wanted to go into this program, even if it was a downsell, as the most incredible thing that I'll ever do. As this is going to grow me, I'm going to 10x my results from this. And I had to make a decision, and to decide means to cut off. Decidere, to sever off, to cut off. So I had to cut off the option that this wasn't going to work. I had to cut off the doubts. I had to cut off the fears. I had to cut off the shame and the guilt. Because if I went into a program of transformation with those feelings, then instead of going in and serving more people, it would have taken me out of the game. And from that decision, I went month to month to month, started making money. I was like 10, sometimes 15K in a month. And one month I didn't even do anything because we had moved, just had a baby, all these things, and I barely brought in enough income. And I started to freak out and I was like, oh no. And then the doubts came back in. I undug the buried stuff that was the doubts, the shame, the guilt, the uncertainty, the unknowing. And I thought, oh no, can I really do this? And I wanted to back out. I wanted to withdraw. I wanted to hide. I wanted to turn and make things easy. And I thought, well, I already know how to make some money. Do I really need this program? And I started to live in the past. From the past decisions that I already created, I started to second guess those. And anytime we turn to the past and wonder if we've done a good decision or not, we are now living in the past. We are now stuck in the past, when to get success, we need to be in the present. You see, most of us are worried about the future or regretting the past. And the moment we regret the past or we worry about the future, we are not living in a state of presence. And guess what? The very thing you want, you need to be in a state of presence, in present time, because you're wasting time back there and you're wasting time up there. The only time that you're going to get momentum and change is when you're living in the present. So as I dwelt on the past thinking, oh, maybe I should have did this, I should have done that, maybe I shouldn't have done this, maybe I could save more money if I did this, I was missing out on the very opportunity of the things that I needed to do. And so instead of confronting and growing and becoming, I avoided. And avoidance, what we do, we turn away. So we go either past or future. And the key is to get really present and confront what we need to avoid, or what we're avoiding. So in that moment, I realized that, okay, I needed to converse. I needed to figure this out. I needed to recommit and decommit from all of the garbage, all of the doubts and uncertainties, and decommit from the addictive cycle that I was in from kept looking back in the past on my decisions. So no matter what you're doing in life, we always have a choice. And it is our choice. We have a choice to look back, to look forward, or to be right here, right now. And when we're right here, right now, yes, that doesn't mean we don't plan for the future, but we're not stuck about how things could be. That's different. Planning is a present thing, even though we're doing it for future purposes. But fixated on worrying about what will happen, that is being stuck in, not in present, but in future. Worrying about past decisions that we've made, that's being stuck in the past. So the key to success, one of the keys, is to really validate where you've been and understand that every decision up to this point, ask yourself this question: why was that the best decision that I ever made? Why was that the best thing that I ever could have done? I've had people steal money from me. I've had lost investments. I've invested in things, and I'll do another video just talking about all the different investments we've made and how they panned out and the mindset going into it. Investing over, almost $500,000 in different income producing or mindset producing or change coaching and all sorts of stuff. And looking back, my goal was never to regret a single decision or a single thing that I've ever done. Because I know that regret, if I go into something regretting, I've seen people struggle for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years plus regretting a past decision that then influences their present decision, and they lead by their past out of the fear, out of the doubt and uncertainty. So if you ever go into a decision with doubt and uncertainty and regret, guess what you're going to breed more of? Doubt, uncertainty, and regret. But if you actually want to make the biggest difference possible, instead of dwelling in the past, worrying about the future, live now. Live in the present. Do what it takes to create what you want without relying on past experiences or future worries. So as I kind of wrap this up, as I went through and I bought that program and I was so excited, this $100,000 thing, and then I lost track because I thought about the money and the goal, and I was so worried about the future, and I wasn't living in the present. I finally decommitted from the negative, and started moving forward. And that year was the year and I felt like I wanted to quit multiple times. There were times where I was like doubting again and again, and I was like, man, this is such an addiction. If I could just shift that thought to where no matter what, I know that this is right, and I am going to make it right. And I'm going to do what it takes to get the most out of this. Even if the guy dies and I never talk to him, that this will be the best decision of my life. And I will make it so. Because the only one who's going to get me a result is me. And I can't blame someone else or someone else's program. That I need to step into this and say, okay, cool. I have decided this was, maybe I wasn't in a good state then, but maybe I was. But still, if I own that fully, then as I go forward, it will be one of the best lessons ever. And I look at things and I say, how was that a $35,000 lesson? How is that a $100,000 lesson? What do I need to do inside of myself to make it 10 times more valuable than what I invested in? So as you're thinking about whatever you've done, wherever you're going, remember these two things. Number one, are you being present? Are you living in the present moment? Or are you dwelling on the past, worried, or worried about the future? Choose to be present. Yes, there's techniques. Yes, there's things you can do. You can do the alignment. You can do all this, but it all comes down. All techniques lead to a choice. And as you choose, then you can become that person capable of making maximum results and maximum with minimal effort. So that's number one. Number two is, as you make a decision, never regret it. Always ask yourself, why was this the most incredible decision of my life? And as you embrace that philosophy, instead of getting stuck on past things, you'll constantly be looking for in the now, what to do, how to change, how to make the best influence possible. And that will get you faster results than anything else. So I'm going to invite you to take some notes from this video and stop living in the past, stop worrying about the future, start choosing to live today, and decide that every choice you've made up to this point has been a part of who you are. And even just that shows that it was the most important thing you could have ever done, even if it seemed like a terrible decision at the time. Who you are today, every part of you, is because of all your past decisions. So honor that, embrace it, and realize that it was all for your good. And as you do that, you can move forward with faith, take action without fear, and get results. Sweet. Okay, drop a comment. I'd love to hear what you're working on or what you're going to do differently because of what you just heard. Action is key here. This is a good philosophy. Yes, I get it. But what resonates with you? What are you going to do differently because of what you've listened to today? Drop a comment below. Like, subscribe. We'll see you in the next video. Thanks so much, and I look forward to seeing your success.